Awesome. All right, teaching probability in years 1 to 3. Oh, hang on, what's going on here? Here we go.
Okay, and as you've heard, I am Jody and have been working with Jules for the last couple of years doing this writing together.
No te atua hau ko Jules toku ingoa. It's really exciting to be here with Jody today and presenting the work that we've done. We've had a lot of laughs and really enjoyed creating these lessons, and we really hope that they're going to be utilised and enjoyed by many teachers in ākonga across the motu. All right. So first of all, we just want to take a moment to talk about what effective practice in a junior school looks like with regards to probability teaching. It's really important that we're making the learning purposeful and that we're basing it in a context that the children are both understanding and have the vocabulary for, but also find engaging and fun. And that's something we've worked really hard on, is trying to find contexts that they're not stale. They haven't hopefully been done too many times before, and they bring life to mathematics and enjoyment to the classroom. It's really important that we have strong links with literacy and that we're utilizing the vocabulary correctly ourselves, as well as encouraging the vocabulary to be used through strong models and sentence frames for our tamariki as well. We need to make sure that we're checking in with the New Zealand curriculum refresh Te Mātaurako, because there is listed vocabulary there that we need to make sure that the children are both exposed to, but also utilising. We need to make sure that there's a key action or an outcome to our investigative question, just to complete that PB-DAC cycle, so that there's a real feeling of going into a cycle of learning and then coming out with new knowledge and a new way of looking at the context that you've been developing as your classroom community. Is there anything else you want to add, Jody?
Yes, that in a junior school, you are working on that role of notice, recognise, and respond. And so a lot of the things that we've developed is kind of a start point, and then we've put in the teacher notes some suggestions for other things you might notice and some suggestions for how you might respond to some of those things. We've looked really hard for or thought and talked about long and hard about what we think effective junior school classroom practices in general, not just in mathematics, and we've looked for those everyday opportunities so that teachers who wouldn't necessarily think, oh, I've got time for some extra maths or for some connections between maths, they can find places where it fits in their literacy or it fits with some of their classroom routines that they're already doing, and they can see the maths content within that.
Mm. We've also, our lessons are aligned with the curriculum, but they also provide room for composite classes and learners at different levels to feel success as well. So we've really designed them with New Zealand classrooms in mind.
Yeah, and we've thought about new to New Zealand teachers or new to teaching. And so not that we want to write them in a way that would be boring for more experienced teachers, but we don't want to leave things to chance. So anything that we felt was important, we've stated it and we've given an example of it, so that it's not for the teacher to try and figure out what we were meaning, but it's there obvious and they can follow very clearly and directly a pathway if they want to, or if they're confident and that's content they know well, then they can innovate from there.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll also notice that our lessons are constructed with accessible resources. They don't cost money. They're just things that you'll have in your classroom, things that you can lay your hands on really easily, and they will come with material masters if they're needed as well, just to make our lives as teachers a little bit easier.
Yeah, and we've thought about the range of New Zealand classrooms, because although Jules and I are teaching in a big city, we have both grown up in smaller places, and so we think about those far-flung places, like if you're in the Chatham Islands teaching our curriculum and there's no Kmart to go to get things, you won't need to go and get anything because the lessons have everything you require within it.
Yeah. Teaching without Kmart sounds tricky, Jody.
Not
All
meant to be a bad Kmart.
right. Okay, so we've just popped in the PB cycle here. All of our lessons are designed against this cycle. We find it really good for both directing our own lessons, but also for engaging our ākonga with the cycle itself, and for them to understand where the lesson's going and what's coming next. So it's a really powerful tool. Okay, effective planning. So, what we will present to you shortly is a year plan for year 1, 2, and 3 in probability. And each of these plans have a longitudinal aspect. They've also got focus lessons, kind of with the idea that you carry out one each term, but each lesson is actually 2 or 3 actual lessons, if that makes sense. Things always take longer than we expect. There's also maintenance activities included within each year's overview, and we've tried to make them really responsive to the needs of your current classroom communities. There's a big emphasis on vocabulary and key understandings, and also highly provoking, engaging beginnings to each lesson. Anything else, Jody?
Our year-long plans, particularly for year 1 and 2, include picture books with a very brief prompt, so that when you're reading that picture book, you can be thinking of it with a mathematics lens. And we tried to choose picture books that aren't already used in other programs, but would be common in lots of our school libraries or classrooms.
Yeah. So here's the year 1 plan. You can see the longitudinal lesson is what's the weather. We've got 4 focus lessons. So the first 3 we've written together, and the last one is actually from NZ Maths. You can find that on Tahurangi. The link is there though. There's a whole lot of picture books, and then there's some particular vocabulary down the bottom. You'll notice as well words like, or phrases like categorical data and frequency. Our year 1 children really need exposure to this vocabulary, because it won't be long before they're using it themselves. And it's about making that vocab come alive for them. Yeah. Jody, is there anything else there? Oh, where's Jody?
No, it's good, Karen.
Good. Okay. Here's our year 2 plan. Once again, we've got a longitudinal aspect. So calendar maths, many of us do carry out calendar maths on a daily basis in our classroom. This particular calendar maths lesson gives deeper opportunities to make sure that the language of probability is embedded within your calendar maths. You might not do this particular calendar maths every day, but you might dip in and out of it over the year, just to really embed that vocabulary. Our focus lessons, we've got one on the gumball machine, rock, paper, scissors, tricky trickster, and then there are some NZ Maths Tahurangi links there of really quality lessons that we suggest you make use of. There's some more picture books, and once again, that vocabulary, making sure that it's strongly embedded. It also extends the year 1 vocabulary, so it's about consolidating what's gone before and also laying the foundation for what's to come. Okay, our year 3 plan. We start with a random name generator. So many of us in junior classrooms use random name generators, be they digital or a simple jar with pop sticks and kids' names in it. These are those tools that we use to pick the leader of the line, or who's going to go and take the clipboard to the office, things like that. So we're trying to find key things that we do in our classroom every day that can actually be tools used to talk about probability on a regular basis. We've got 4 focus lessons: human, slot machine, crazy animals, funnel, and then once again a couple of really quality lessons that you can find on Tahurangi from NZ Maths. There's two digital tools there that are super fun, and we suggest you go and have a good look at it. Well, sorry, the Vile Vendor is a digital tool, and the Possibility Book by Bruce Goldstone. He's written a whole series of books that are great. And then yeah, once again, that vocabulary. Is there anything else, Jody? Sorry, I keep asking you.
Hey, good. That's good.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so here is our first focus lesson. So this is that, so we're going to talk through four of our lessons today with a little bit more detail. The links and things are all online at Census on School, and through these slides, the links are live, so you'll be able to go and do a deeper dive yourself. So the first one we're going to talk about today is human slot machine. And this was actually designed based on a little video that I think we should go and look at. So what we found, Jody found the clip online and it just looked so fun. And we thought, right, let's take this idea and make this into a probability lesson for year three kids. And then we got a little bit even more excited and thought, well, actually, in our year three classrooms, we have children that need a little bit of front loading. They might need the next level below before we expose them to the year three learning. So we've actually made three lessons, one at year one called Lucky Dip, one at year two called Tricky Trickster, and one at year three called the Human Slot Machine. And they're all based around a similar context. The way you use them can be as creative as you want. You might front load with the year one, two in activity and then come out with the year three learning. For your year three tamariki, you might just do the year one and use year two as an extension maybe. For younger tamariki, it's totally up to you. This is a game where the more magic and noise and excitement you put into it, the more engaging it's going to be. So the lesson involves a chance-based investigation in a probability experiment. It makes use of a tree, probability tree as a data representation, and then it involves playing the game 20 times and collecting data and having a look at what's happened in that data. Throughout it, it provides opportunities for kako to model the correct vocabulary. It talks about the word outcome, talks about chance, and it talks about probability experiments and what the probability is of either a match or a non-match. And that's kind of key to the idea. So with Lucky Dip, Tricky Trickster, and Human Slot Machine, whatever the children are pulling out of their buckets, the idea is if it's a match, you need the items to all be the same. Or if there's whatever combination they have of non-match items, whether you've got one, two, or three buckets, it's considered a non-match. So that's important information for this. We've absolutely loved designing this series of lessons for you, and we really hope that you enjoy it as much as we have.
And that sounds really like serious. But as we've designed them and made them, we've played them together. So Jules and I, we got our little buckets and we've gone and pulled it out. And so we've written that into the lesson. So we've suggested how you play it with your class, and so that you can have that fun with your class before you start that mathematical thinking.
Mm. If you are a maths leader in your school, this would be a fantastic lesson to do as part of staff development, especially in that it's quite a chunky lesson, the year three lesson, and then you've got the tricky trickster and lucky dip to fall back on for those younger students as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and when played that in my staff meeting for my colleagues. It was so popular that then we were just going to play it a little bit and then talk about the mathematical content, but we actually had to play it quite a bit because they were excited. And then lots of teachers went away and did that the next day with their class, whether they taught year 3 or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So the video shows fruit, but really all you need are 3 ice cream containers and a couple of I had pegs and shells the other day when I played it. So, it doesn't have to be flash, but it's about making the noises and the excitement. Okay.
And the next lesson we're going to talk a little bit about is one of our longitudinal lessons. So not a one-off lesson, but written as a lesson so that you could do it at dip into it at different points of your week or different points of your term throughout the year. It is a context that New Zealanders are really obsessed with. A lot of our talk and when we get together is about the weather, and we know that that's a really good context for children to start learning about some probability because they can take that learning home with them, and people at home are interested in the weather already. So it's something they're familiar with and families are familiar with, so you can make some really strong home learning links. There are some absolutely fabulous resources that are included with that come from the New Zealand Met Service. There's beautiful weather posters that are in English and Te Reo, and we've linked them to that lesson. They are gorgeous in their phrasing and their wording, but they're also really lovely as a visual prompt. And so we know how important it is to have visual prompts for many of our learners. And so those as a support for your discussion before you're getting more deeply into the probability discussion is really, really useful. We have planned it so that you could do it every day if you wanted to, and the questions would lead one to the other, or that you could do it at that more intermittent time. You could further extend that by collecting weather data beyond the visual data, or just walking outside and feeling if there's wind on your skin with a school weather station. And so you could make it much more complex if you wanted to with data that you've collected yourself. Or you could keep it as simple as you've made your little symbols together in class for the different sorts of weather, and you're recording that and then talking about probability based around that. It is great because it doesn't need to be maths that you're doing during your 1 hour of mathematics. This is a perfect piece of mathematics that can fit into those other learning opportunities throughout the day where you've got 10 minutes somewhere else, or you've got, 7.5 minutes, and it's not long enough to do a story and a discussion, but it's perfect to do a bit of probability. And it is that regularity so that the children have got lots of opportunities to become familiar with the concepts and the vocabulary, and then be able to have the opportunities to use that vocabulary themselves. It links, as Jules said, directly to the calendar maths. So if in year 1 they had what's the weather, then your children in year 2 for calendar maths, there'd be some similarities that they'd be like, oh yeah, I know that. So the prior knowledge for them, they could then start right into that next level of thinking.
Mm. I think, this is a great example, Jody, of something a lot of us do in classrooms every day, but these lessons, the design of them brings a new depth to the conversations that we're having with children and the vocabulary that we're learning. And
Yeah.
I know, for there are those days that we gloss over these kinds of these they're conversations, but there's also those moments where we can do a deeper dive and make sure that we're bringing that deeper mathematical concepts and understandings to the surface.
And really fabulous, like leading into those times of the year where resources have gone back to resource rooms, or you're not set up, you're starting off like me, I've started off a new entrant class mid-year, and so you're still gathering and sorting some of your things, but this is so low resources that you need that actually you can start it from day 1, and it's meaningful. It's not time filler kind of busy work. It's really deep and meaningful thinking for your children. You're giving them amazing opportunities, and you're not having to rely on needing lots of things.
Absolutely. Okay. The next one we're going to talk about is crazy animals. Now, um, this is a lesson that's actually around combinations, and it's based on those drawing activities you do with children where you draw an animal and then you cut it into heads, middle parts, and the tails, and you draw a second animal and you mix the animals up to make new animals. So it's based on the idea of creating crazy animals. And this lesson calls for you to spend time creating crazy animals with your class. Now, it could be a full-on art lesson, or it could just be a 10-minute drawing session. I've done it after a wet lunchtime where I actually gave them the crazy animals experience or the opportunity to create the crazy animals during the wet lunchtime, and then that stemmed into maths after lunch. That was quite powerful. The kids absolutely love it, especially if you put the literacy aspect in. So you might have an elephant tiger and it might become an ella iger, or, um, you can play around with it and really create those interesting discussions with kids. So the idea of crazy animals is you've got two animals and they're cut into three body parts, and you're working out through drawing patterns how many different crazy animals you can create with two animals that are cut into three and body parts. There's actually 8 animals that you can create. This lesson, because it starts with just two animals with three body parts, there is a lot of room for extension and challenge. There's a lot of room to explore both the actual combinations and patterning and the way you're recording the patterning, but also the idea of introducing a third crazy animal or 4 body parts, or pulling it back to two animals with 2 body parts to explore the algebra behind it, I guess. So it's quite an exciting lesson. It's quite different from the other lessons. It doesn't have another lesson that it's linked to. It's kind of a standalone just for our year 3. This would also be a great activity to do for professional development in the staff room. It would definitely get people talking and laughing and thinking about those cross-curriculum opportunities that we need to give our akonga.
And we intentionally planned some new content that hadn't been started in year 1 and 2, so that children had something new and fresh to be excited about, which is why Crazy Animals doesn't have a year 1 or 2 simpler version of it.
Absolutely. It's also quite a big concept thinking about combinations. So yeah. Okay. It's also, we've got all sorts of different lessons, but this one, just from an inclusive point of view, thinking about our children that are arts and literacy focused and getting them engaged with mathematics. And by starting with a drawing activity, you just never quite know which child that's going to really fully engage and get them involved. So it's powerful from that angle too.
And our year 2 lesson, Rock, Paper, Scissors, and that title is even controversial. And lots of people around the world have made probability lessons that start with that concept, as is specifically for New Zealand. And so has got the option of playing it in Te Reo, Toka Pepa Kuti. And Jules and I come from different parts of New Zealand, and so even the discussion about the title, we realised that it's a really important part before you play the game with your class, is to decide what you call it and what your rules are. So do you say rock, paper, scissors, or I come from Southland and we say paper, scissors, rock, and then do you say shoot at the end or do you not? And so all of that kind of discussion is really important to do. Lots of classrooms, including my own, if we need a quick decision, that's the tool we use to make a quick decision. So taking something that the children know and use daily and turning it into something that they're thinking mathematically about we felt was a really good start place. This lesson then leads on to a beautiful game called Whānau Whānau, which has got some similarities, but of course is more complex than Paper, Scissors, Rock because there's 4 different options. So you could have both of them in your classroom, and then you would have differentiated experience across phase 1 for your students. And we feel that's really important to provide that things that you can that link together so that you're talking about some similar things when you're doing some together discussion, and then when they're going off to do their thinking, it can be at different levels. In this lesson, you go from the teacher guiding the building of a table to actually asking the children to be able to build a table and organize the data themselves. So it's a good way of children being able to actually be in the driver's seat. So because in year 1, quite often, and I'm guilty of this myself, even when my children are capable of doing some of that, sometimes I do too much of that for them. And so it's really important in the Te Mātai Aho for our children to be having the experiences of them deciding how to organise the data, not the teacher telling them how to organise the data. And so you want something that they're familiar with, and that they aren't learning the content of the game, so that their thinking can go on, oh, what do I do with this data? How can I make that make sense? And how can I use it in a way that I then can answer the investigative question? We have provided lots of talking frames to support the teacher with that, because we know that often that's something that teachers, if they're under time pressure, would do for the children. So that's those supports are there for them, so that if they're not familiar with doing that, they can follow the lesson directly. We've made some suggestions about including digital content, because we know that that's a focus for many classrooms, and there's some wonderful tools to use. And so there's lots of things we could have suggested, but we've put the tools that we think are most useful and don't take a lot of setting up in your classroom and can be used again and again. I love that this game suggests and shows children that actually maths is everywhere. Maths is not just some numbers when you're inside the classroom, and it's that specific time of the day. And we really want to promote that idea, because of course all of you will know that maths is the most glorious, beautiful, creative thing, but not all of our children think that. And so we want to give lots of opportunities so they can see that maths is really amazing and really super fun, and actually they're amazing mathematicians already, and some of their thinking about their mathematics is guided through this lesson and some new vocabulary for them, but they actually are mathematicians already. Again, it's got really great home links, because those games are really fun to play, and we've made some suggestions about playing them at home and then bringing that data back to school to be able to organise further and use the next day.
Okay, so the links. Oh, there's a link here to the Census at School website where the planning is, so the year overviews, but also the full teacher plans for each lesson. We'd also love to hear your feedback, either prior to the lessons, if you're looking at the plan and thinking you've got a question maybe about it or something's unclear. Um, or after the lesson, let us know how what you did, how you extended it, what your kids thought of it. And once again, if there's anything that might need more focus, Jody and I are constantly amending things and sending Pip emails saying, can you change this and tweak that, aren't we?
Yes, yes. And we're very privileged to have had this opportunity through PIP to write content that we feel is useful, and we've tested in our own classrooms, and we think that's a huge privilege to be creating content that we know is needed, but also is specifically for us, for New Zealand teachers in New Zealand schools. And we're really thankful, Pip, for that.
Mm. Tautoko that, Jody.
You're very
That's it.
welcome.
And that's it from us.
Yeah.